here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Jania Butler of the New American Perspective. I got on my dark glasses today because you're blind. You can't see. You need to wear some glasses like the DNC, because the DNC is looking for your blind vote black people. So I put on my dark glasses because we can't see. We have a great show for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are great wherever you at all over the world. Thank you so much for tuning in and making this show great with us. So let's get right into it. Okay, so we've got 13 days left before the biggest election of our lives. How do you feel? Have you early voted? I think about 18 million people have early voted, and I think that is great. New York early voting starts in 3 days. So if you're in the New York City area, you can early vote in the next 3 days and cast your vote. And I think it's easy. I think it's easier. I don't know if, things get carried away or things like that, but at least people get to see where we're at today. We have some great guests coming on today, and we have some great things. So let's talk about it. Okay, so what was last week? Okay, so my favorite part about last week was former President Donald Trump going to work at the McDonald's. Now, did you see it? Okay, so he was on fries. He had no gloves, no hat, and stuff like that. And that was something that I had noticed too. And then I said, well, maybe he's just, playing with the fries. But I heard that he's really anal and really clean and whatever. You need some gloves, President Trump. You need some gloves on, okay? I don't care who you are. I'm going to need you to wear some gloves. But I think it was amazing. He was at the drive-thru. People are rolling up, and he's handing them their food, and it was great. What we didn't see was if anybody rejected the food. That's what we didn't see. But I thought it was a great event. The Democrats went crazy about him because the punchline to that was happy birthday, Vice President Harris. The punchline to that was Vice President Kamala Harris's birthday was on Sunday, October 20th. My birthday on October 21st, okay, which was Monday. But Vice President Kamala Harris's birthday was on Sunday, and she had said that she used to work at a McDonald's back in the 1980s when she was putting herself through some schools, one of the schools that she had went through. And she said that she worked. But here's the problem. We have no record of this. Nobody can come up with a record of her working for McDonald's. So that's one thing. So now the other thing is, so again, we're looking for the blind vote now. And so now the blind vote says that, oh, she said she did it, so she did it. Just like Coach Walsh and his, that he was in the China Square when the big riot happened. He's like, I just misspoke, man. I'm a knucklehead. So if we're going for that, people, then we're going for that. But if we're not, we're looking into it. So Vice President Harris, she spent her birthday at Dr. Jamal Bryant's church in Georgia, New Life. I think it's New Life Church in Georgia. And she spent her day there and she preached. Okay, so she went in the pulpit and she talked about the Good Samaritan. Now, the problem with that one, Vice President Harris, was that you didn't quote any scripture. You talked about the scripture, but we always have to worry about somebody who goes in the pulpit and does not quote the scripture. She talked about the parable of the Good Samaritan. I didn't really get where she was coming from or where she was going with that, but she talked, so she was there and she was, she's showing up now. So when she needed to get revved up and, get into her character for running for president of the United States. I understand. So now she's out. She just did an NBC interview. She's doing a bunch of interviews everywhere. She's popping up everywhere. She's talking. And so I cannot be remiss to start off. I'm a hip hop girl. I am a citizen of hip hop. And your boy, President Obama, he stepped out, and that's a cool brother right there. I'm never going to take away from President Obama and his swag, right? And he stepped out, and rapper Eminem from Detroit, introduced President Obama, and President Obama started rapping. And, he started rapping the first words to Lose Yourself. First, he came out to Lose Yourself, and I thought that was something, right? And then he started rapping the words to Lose Yourself, and then he started, he was about to start going, and he said, no, I'm just kidding. But, there's a difference, President Obama. When you are out on a presidential trail, we know that you have the charisma. We know that you know the way and you know how to do this. But to try to force this woman down our throats, to try to force us as Black Americans, as Black citizens of the United States to vote in a direction because of her race or whatever you want to call it, is just wrong. It's wrong. Why are you not going to any other body of people, any other community of people, and saying, how dare you, and all that? So, and then I look at Kamala, she had Lizzo come out, they had Usher come out, now they've got Eminem, they have Magic Johnson, they've got all these people that, again, inflation, they're not affected by the inflation. They're not affected by anything that we're going through. So do they really care? I mean, I'm sure that they care about taxes at the end of the day, but do they really care about the stuff that matters to us? What they care about is being in the in crowd, being, like I said weeks ago, invited to the barbecue, right? And being able to talk and feel, and the president respecting them when, in another day, we might have not gotten that much respect. But I'm happy for hip hop. I'm happy that people are now seeing, the power of it. But at the same time, that power is not one-sided. And so we have the other side where Essence Magazine, they made a post and they said, listen, I heard Donald Trump is calling up entertainers to come out and XYZ, and you got to come back through us. You're going to need the sages. What kind of stuff is that? Is that American politics? Is that how we go about it? If you stand up for this guy, we're going to vote you out. But let's look at what happened to McDonald's that quick. So President Trump over at McDonald's, seemingly great event at McDonald's, great, campaign stop. It was great. I thought it was great. But guess what? McDonald's had an E. coli outbreak. I don't know how far along far ago this was, but it came out now that 45 people are suffering from an E. coli outbreak from McDonald's, and one person in Colorado, an elderly person, died. And they reported this. I'm not sure when it happened, but they reported it after President Donald Trump went to McDonald's, and now their shares went down 9.2%. So is that how we want to do American politics? Then we've got Elon Musk. Elon Musk is giving out $1 million a day up until the election to people who sign his petition in Pennsylvania. Oh, Coach Walsh was off his rocker with that one. How dare he do that? Well, what about your girl Whoopi Goldberg? I didn't even know that you could do that in politics. Miss Goldberg, I want to inform you, and I love you to life, that with a super PAC, you could pretty much do anything you want. If Elon wanted to give $5 million a day, and this is what was the whole Citizens United case was about. But if they want to give $5 million a day, they can get $5 million a day to whatever as a super PAC, as long as they do not coordinate directly with the campaign. And he's not doing that. And he could do anything at this point to push the vote. You just have to, make sure that your records are in order. Where you gave the money, how'd you got the money. We know where Elon got the money. We seen Elon just roll out his super robot, Maximus. I think his name is Maximus, right? His name is Maximus, right? The super robot Maximus that can watch your kids, that can clean up. He said it could be your friend. He said it could do anything you want. Well, those of us from the Jetsons era know what that's like, because the Spaceys and the Jetsons and everything. I forgot. Rosie was the robot. I guess Rosie was Maximus. Maximus is more manly. Rosie was a little wider robot. But here we are. We're in the Jetsons era. I wrote about that not too long ago, a few years back, with the NMPA. We'll bring that back up, right? So everybody's rounding up the churches, and I want to shout out the organizers behind Kamala Harris and pulling all these people. These are master organizers out there. I know who you are, and you're strong and everything. And I think that we over-organize and forget about the things that we need. You guys are power organizers, but organize for the things that we need, okay? She came out with the specifically for Black men, I'm going to give y'all a loan, a non-forgivable loan. She said non-refundable. I don't know if that fixes. I was repeating that last week, but it's a non-forgivable loan where, it's a forgivable loan. Non-forgivable loan to where, they're going to give some money to the Black men that have entrepreneurship and jobs, and $25,000 home ownership to every new homeowner. Now your boy Bill O'Reilly, he says, "Oh no, we can't do that." So these are dreams that they're throwing out, right? But these master organizers that we have, I love it because I know how strong these people are and how connected they are with the community and how they can use their influence to change the community. I mean, you had the BET Awards. You had your girl Angela Rye in the booth, talking about how, she's with Kamala and Kamala, excuse my language. Everybody beat me up for, reading the word wrong. Kamala. Okay. So that everybody is down and everybody is doing some stuff. But I just feel like the Black issue, we have post-traumatic stress about beating the white man at something, right? I just want to beat the white man no matter what. If it's white and Black, it's always Black. And so they are using that against us. And that's my problem with that. But President Barack Obama, he's using that against us. They're using these things against us. And then while they're using it against us, the race is going on without us. So we're not even negotiating for what we want. And other people, you've seen that President Trump, he went to a barbershop and in the Bronx, in Castle Hill in the Bronx. And he sat down with, I think they were Dominicans, Hispanic potential voters. And he went in there and he had a nice conversation. They're moving away from the Black vote because it's predictable. You guys are going to vote Democrat. So we don't even want to talk to you. You guys are not going to get anything for your vote if you continue on with this. And that's what's happening. And so is that what we want to do? The Democrats are anchored in our vote. The Democrats need our vote right now. They're looking at the fact that Vice President Harris, she doesn't have as much Black support as Joe Biden did. Well, the good thing is that our community is actually waking up and saying, wait a minute. And the great thing is that the black men in the community are waking up and saying, wait a minute, I'm not about to vote a prosecutor in that put all my brothers in jail in California, and then she trying to act like she did the job and, oh, well, I let people out. I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did some sort of programming, because I don't believe that anybody all the way across the board wants people to be in jail, but she did put a lot of people in jail as well. So the black man is saying, no, I ain't with that. And you got to understand that, okay? And we do not need to be force-fed. Now what we see is we see folks coming on and they're like, oh, you said black men are not for Kamala? Oh, well, let me show you this black man. But they're different types of black men, okay? And so they're just putting, this type of black man. Like I said, the black community can see that, okay, this type of black man, it's more of a classism type of thing. The more astute black man is going to vote for Kamala Harris, right? And the more thuggish, ruggish, I don't want to say hood, but, the street more guy is going to look to vote for Trump because we like gangster stuff, right? So it's in there, and it's okay because, again, in America, we have the right to choose who we want to vote for, or do we? Says President Barack Obama. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to a quick break, and we're going to come back with some more great conversation about this week. I want to hear from you. So check me out on Instagram at Jania Butler, JINEEA. Check me out on Millennium News TV. That's Millennium News 24. And let us know how you think. You can pick us up on Roku, Amazon, Facebook. Most people see us on Sky Network, Horizon, Apple TV. We're all over the place. This is the New American Perspective. Your host, Jania Butler, and this Millennium News TV. And we'll be right back. And we are back. And so we're talking about this last week, and we're talking about all the things that have happened in this week. I mean, this next 2 weeks, oh my God, I'm so nervous. How do you feel? Because I feel like it's dangerous, right? I feel like it's definitely dangerous. So I talked about Vice President Harris in Dr. Jamal Byron Church's New Birth church, and she talked about the Gospel of Luke, but then she says, I'm going to read from the Gospel of Luke, and then she starts laughing. Ha 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 ha. No, Vice President Harris, not in the pulpit, and not with the gospel, not when you're about to read the word of God. Didn't give reference to the scripture. We talked about that. She gave her own synopsis of Luke. I think that we all have to go and read it now. She talked about interning in Oakland, right? And she talked about the Good Samaritan. So I don't know. I think that you need to look at it and see how you feel about it, because I wasn't feeling it. Again, I'm going to go ahead and I think they're looking for the blind vote. Just blindly vote for me. I'm here. The Gospel of Luke. No, we are not laughing about the gospel. And weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And that's how she ended it. And that was the Black experience that we had on her birthday. She tried to sing, but she didn't really know the words. So it was very interesting. So have you seen SNL on her stuff? Saturday Night Live Have you seen Saturday Night Live? Okay. It's really funny. She's a really funny Quincy Jones's daughter. She does her and she's hilarious. Okay. And Vice President Harris said, "Oh, it's great for people to poke fun at you and everything of that nature." But they're poking fun and they're bringing out the real stuff. So I think if you watch it, go and check out some of those SNL snippets. They did the SNL, they did the Brett Barr interview, and Alec Baldwin was Brett Barr, and they showed how she was really defensive in that interview when she was fighting, how she didn't answer any questions. And the way that everybody is looking at it was that she came in knowing that she wasn't going to answer any questions. She wanted to seem like the Brett Barr, was trying to be nasty to her, like the Fox News people. Oh, they were just nasty, and she was jumping up and she had her little attitude. I didn't say that. Let me finish. I am speaking. Let's just get down to the point. I don't want to hear that. Are you going to go overseas and talk to Putin and Kim Jong-un like that? I think that we have to worry about it, and again, I'll be honest, I don't have a problem with being honest. I don't have real stakes in it other than I believe in the Republican mantra. I think the Republicans need to work a lot harder on pushing us forward, the Black community forward. And we have one of our guests coming on that's running for Congress in Queens, Black gentleman, and Dwayne Moore. And he's going to talk to us about what he's going through as an individual running for Congress as a Republican. I think the Republicans have to push more into it. But here's the thing. When we're getting clipped by our own people, right, in the Democratic Party, when they're shaming everybody, coming to the forefront and making it hard for people to step up and vote for who they want it for, they're like, "Oh, we're going to go over there to the Hispanics." And then we're going to have Manny Ayala on, and he's going to talk about the Hispanic vote and how he feels about that. And I think that they're being empowered because, again, nobody is over top of them saying, "You're not allowed to vote. If you step up to vote, we're going to kill you. If you step up to vote, you're never going to work again." Look at Chrisette Michele. She did the presidential inauguration for Trump years ago. We ain't seen her since. And is that because she went to perform at a presidential inauguration and the people don't want it? And so this is the only power they have? That's a slave mentality, people. We have to get out of that. And you have to let my people go. Can we do that? So, that you, Dwayne?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How are you? I was just talking about you. This is Mr. Dwayne Moore. He's a congressional candidate in Queens. Dwayne, welcome to the New American Perspective. And tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about what we got going on right now.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Sure.
So my name is Dwayne Moore. I'm a New York State Assembly candidate in District 29. A little bit about me. I'm a former educator. I was a ninth grade English teacher and a college counselor. Then I got signed in entertainment where I got to do modeling and acting. I got to book jobs and got to travel around a bit. And now I made this pivot here to running for office because to me, there's just a lot of central issues that are not being discussed, such as the failure of the education system, which disproportionately impacts Black students, run mostly by Democratic mayors and governors. A lot of the failures within the economics that we've seen in decline since the 1960s. So for me, as someone that believes in democracy and loves this country, it was an honor that I'm very grateful for to be able to run.
So you say you made the pivot, right?
Yes.
The big pivot. How long have you been a Republican?
Yeah, so actually, I wasn't always a Republican. I say, everyone's a liberal until they pay taxes, right? So when I was in college, I was definitely drinking a lot of the, I would say, liberal propaganda and talking points. But as I got out into the world and I started working, I started to get a different perspective. And that's when I made a change to become a registered Republican. Because to me, I think we look at things as just as how we've been told, as opposed to what the actual policies are. But to me, I tell people all the time, it's not about the party, it's about the policies. That's what's most important. And the policies right now, the left, I think, are absolutely disastrous and need to be discussed more.
And how do you think about former President Obama and the way that he's, pointing fingers at black men? How do you feel about that?
I found that to be absolutely appalling and disrespectful, because for someone as former President Obama, who claims to love democracy and claims to love diversity, it seems like that's only true until it's diversity of thought. And then when you're a black man or a black person that says, hey, I think there's different policies that I agree with or I align with, then it's kind of like getting the slave master to come out there and get the slaves back on the plantation a bit, and not wanting this diversity of idea or even the discussion. And nothing he even mentioned had anything to do with policies or even acknowledging a lot of the negative impacts people are feeling in major cities, a lot of black people are feeling with the migrant crisis. So for me, it was absolutely appalling that he would take that stance and not go at it on the way of difference on policies, but try to make this emotional plea to try to shame black men into voting for a candidate. I thought that was absolutely appalling and shameful, and I thought he was better than that.
Now, how does that translate to you when you're out with the voters? How does that translate to you when you're saying, "Hi, I'm Dwayne. I'm a Republican, and I want your vote"? How does that work for you?
Well, for me, I stand on business. So I know 10 toes down. I know the facts, the policies, and I try to approach people as these are the things that we both seeing. We're seeing in New York City, we're in a high tax area. We know that there's just money being wasted all over. For those of us that drive, we know the roads are in bad condition. For those of us that have either worked in education or have kids in education right now, we know that there's failures and we know they could be doing better. So I identify things that people feel. And then I said, you know that these are the responsibility of your local elected officials. So for me, I don't run from being a Republican. I think that it's more important that more people step up and say it, because right now people are shamed to think differently. There's actually not a policy debate, which used to be the essential pillars of this country, actually going into a forum debating policy and then having the people decide. They're just shaming you and saying, oh, well, the other side is evil, they're racist. And for me, I'm not trying to vote for someone that likes me. I'm trying to vote for someone whose policies I think align with what is needed right now.
Who are you running against in Queens?
Yes, I'm running against the incumbent Alicia Hyman. She's been there for about 10 years. She won in a special election. And for everyone that supposedly loves democracy, she's never had a general election in her entire career. So this is the first time she's actually facing a general election opponent, which I think is appalling. And I think that, as I tell people, it just isn't a free market. Things work better for you as a voter when both sides are competing for you, because then it's not just about who likes you, it's about efficiency and results, which I feel like we need much more of in my district and area and state.
Right. Yeah. And let's talk about that, because that's what, this is, again, the Jedi mind trick that I talk about all the time. The fact that the Democrats, they want us on one side of the ballot. Right. Mm-hmm. And so once I win the primary, which is a short race, right? So if I start out in November and then my primary is in June and then I have a clean sailing, I'm taking all that money. I'm not doing anything. I'm not telling the community anything else. It's smooth sailing. I don't owe the community anything, because all I did was fight off my Democratic opponents, and you don't like Republicans. So I don't have an opponent in November in the general election. And I think that's what we're missing when we do that, because there's a lot more money that can flow. There's a lot more conversation that can happen. And there's a lot more that can happen in our community if we open that up. So I applaud you for getting on that line and being there, because this is what we have to fight. This is the real Black fight and the real Black agenda that we should be looking at. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I tell people all the time, we have to have a results mindset of how we vote. Almost every other demographic in this country has a high level of swing voters, to where they start one way, and then when they look at the results, they move. Just as we're seeing in the Jewish community, to where they've solidly been Democrat, there's been transition. We've seen in the Latino community, they were solidly Latino, they've transitioned. We've seen also in the Asian community to where they were solidly Democrat, there's transition. Almost every other demographic except the Black vote has seen, even though we're seeing more now, but not to the levels that we need to see to say that both parties have to compete for us. I also think it's part of the responsibility of the Republican Party to do better outreach and to be able to push more candidates of color out into communities so they could push the narrative, because ultimately if you don't show up, then your opponent gets to define you. But at the same time, this is part of the playbook of, I think, voter suppression, to where you shame people into voting one side, to where it's about, hey, I look like you, I'm fighting for your rights and things that aren't actually tangible or you can't see backed up by data. And then as there's no opponent, there's no competition, then no one's actually clocking you or holding you accountable for the things going on. As I've seen in community board meetings, everyone would be complaining about the scenarios. And I'm like, hey, these are your local elected officials. But then as you say someone's with an R, they look at you as if you just committed murder. Those two things can't coincide. You can't always look at a new candidate or a new way of thinking as wrong when everything you've been doing hasn't been working. So I think right now we need both sides to actively compete so we can get back to, like, in a free marketplace, more of a performance-based voting mindset.
Thank you so much. And Dwayne, as you were saying, that Latino piece, you see that we have my brother, Manny Ayala. He just jumped on direct from Puerto Rico. You know, what we talked about in just a second, Manny, what we talked about is that the Black vote is absolutely becoming obsolete when we do this and when we act like this, and they're diminishing the power of our vote when they're saying, no, don't vote any other direction because we're anchored in the Democratic Party. But then we have President Trump now meeting with Latino leaders. President Trump going to the barbershop in the Bronx. He's in Florida talking to the Latinos. And so I brought on my brother Manny because Bill O'Reilly, he says, well, the Latinos are going to decide the vote now. And so, Manny, talk to us about that. Manny's a friend of the show. He's been on the show before, but talk to us about that. Give us a little background of yourself, your marketing history, right? He's a legend in guerrilla marketing. He started this, you know, and I think he'll be an elected official one day in Puerto Rico, and we're looking at that. But tell us about how you feel now.
First and foremost, good day to both of y'all, man. God bless this conversation, man, because it's so necessary at this time as we, you know, hunker down to the last 2 weeks of this electoral campaign, man, that has been, as I told Jania earlier on the sidebar conversation, I've never seen such a slanderous campaign ever in my life. Across the board, not just Kamala and Trump, but across the board, where these commercials, man, that if we was in free America and it wasn't part of the campaign trail, yeah, I would bring you up on slander, because you're belittling my name, you're belittling who I am, whether it's Kamala to Trump or Trump to Kamala or any of these congressmen or these congresspeople that are running for office this year. They're not talking about the issues and what they're going to do. What they're doing is basically these commercials are focused on belittling their opponent. And it wasn't like that back in the days. I'm growing up. I'm 55 years old, so I've been through quite a few of these. And as I look at it, I said, this is the first time that I've ever seen it so bad. And as a Latino, that now we're at the forefront. We're not the minority no more. We're not the majority. And as they say now, the Black and the Browns get together, like when we did Vote or Die or Rock the Vote and things that have come afterwards, the I Am the Vote and situations like that. When we come together as a unit, we are able to fight the opponent, the oppressor. They don't want to see us come up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
You talked about that earlier, about while they're trying to separate us, we actually live in the same communities and we're on the same streets, and then say that our issues are different. You know, how do you feel about that, Dwayne? Do you feel that the voters in your district are feeling that way?
I feel like the voters in my district are frustrated, but they also have to acknowledge who is truly responsible for a lot of the failures in policies. And this is why, you know, to your point, we have to get back to just talking about policies, like having an open border that was done by not a border bill, but 94 executive orders that were undone, that undid Trump policies and put in Biden and Kamala Harris policies that have led to an explosion of over 15 million migrants, some that have taken over apartment complexes, some that have been robbing people in New York City on scooters. And then there's this false equivalency of, oh, immigrants commit less crimes than Americans do. Well, anyone that steps over the border illegally committed a crime, even though Vice President Harris said that it's not. It's a crime. Just as if, walking into the White House without a permission, it would be a crime. We have borders. This whole country is our home. And I think what we're seeing in the Latino community and also in the Black community is there's a difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. The same reason people came over here was to escape some of the elements in their country. And they're seeing that come directly into their neighborhoods, such as Jackson Heights, where they've seen a whole bunch of robbings. They've seen the scooters. They've seen prostitution rise up. And, if you're young as myself, 29, and you want to have a family, you think, is this city or state look like something that I could raise a family in where I actually feel safe? I feel like the politicians are actually for me. No. When you're putting billions of dollars, not in infrastructure, not into fixing the fairly schools, not into actually things that we need like flooding mitigation, but to feeding and housing and incentivizing illegal immigration, has shown a lack of desire to take care of the American people. And now you're taking care of American citizens. It's like you're not even doing your job for us. So when we talk about policies, we win, but we have to stop getting into so much of the emotional topics that the lefts want us to and be engulfed in.
So Manny, let me ask you, about the migration. So, I always say that, your cousins is running across the border, right? So how do you feel about that? Do you think that there should be leeway? Do you think that, how do you feel about it?
I've thought about it since Trump wanted to put up the wall. Mm-hmm. And good idea, bad idea, depends on what side of the wall you want. You see what I'm saying? As a Latino, I'm first generation United States of America. So my parents were born here in Puerto Rico, my mother and my father, and they came to the United States, the land of opportunity. The United States is no longer that, I'm sorry to say. It's not the land of opportunity. We don't have opportunities for the people that live here, much less you bring another 15, 20 million people across that border that don't have skill sets, and you don't create opportunities for them. And then what they're gonna do? They're gonna do what we used to do as a community. Let's say in the 70s and the 80s, even early 90s, man. We went to the streets. We did what we had to do to take care of our families. Put shoes on our kids' feet, put food on the table. You got to do what you got to do at the end of the day. Whether it's drugs, whether it's prostitution. Look what's happening in Queens now that they're trying to decriminalize prostitution, making it look like it's simple. We're not on the corner prostituting. We're inside an establishment. So the same way they decriminalize cannabis, can you decriminalize prostitution? And what problems is that going to bring with it? So it becomes another problem. So it's like, like I told my man Power, man, God bless Power, man. He's at the forefront of this movement for the New York City side of it. And I told Power, I said, man, we need to create opportunity. We can't just keep bringing them here and then put them up in a hotel for 90 days or put them on an island for 6 months and tell them, hey, y'all figure it out. We're going to continue to feed you. We're going to supply you a bed, and then y'all figure it out from there. Now you got Mexican women and you got Colombian and Salvadorians and all that with their kids on the train selling chocolates. So that means the little money that they got to go buy fruits and chocolates and waters and things of that nature instead of feeding their family or feeding their children. They got to go on the train to try to double up and triple up that little bit of money, them coins. Because guess what? They know that in 3 months or 90 days or 60 days or whatever it is, we're going to be back out in the street. We're going to be living in the streets. And guess what? Then what? Then we got a whole bunch of homeless immigrants. And what do you expect from that at the end of the day? You know what that's going to become? That's going to become a real problem, man. I mean, like our future congressman just said, Mr. Moore, these people are now becoming the moped, robbers. They're shooting in the streets like it's the wild, wild west. I've never seen it. I mean, like I said, I've spent 50 years of my life in the Bronx and in Manhattan and in Barrio and throughout New York City, throughout the boroughs and all that. And I've lived in different states. So we're not just going to break it down in New York City. We're going to talk about how it's going on in Atlanta. It's going down in Miami. It's going down in Chicago. It's going down in LA. It's going down in Houston. I've lived in all of the above places. And I've seen the depletion of what's going on. There's no room for us. So once you start bumping into each other, what happens? You start pushing back. And that's what my people are starting to do. They're starting to push back. So I understand where Trump is coming from. Once again, Kamala, you know what I'm saying? If you didn't do nothing in 3.5 years that you was a VP in office, now you want to go appear at the wall when it's an electoral year. You want to go talk about it. You want to be about it. You want to talk about the economy. Guess what? You ain't done nothing. So let's get you out the position you in and put you back in your AG office, you know what I'm saying, or something like that, man, where you belong. Not in office, controlling the government, not being the head chief of our military. I'm sorry to say, I would never put her. She's too emotional. I would never put her in that position. So let's get back to the topic of the Latinos and the migrants. We need to fix the situation. We cannot open up the floodgates. We need to close them. We need to start venting these people that are coming in, making sure that they're not past criminals, that they're not getting out of jail and coming over here to do the same thing that they were doing over there, that they got a skill set that when they come here, whether I don't care if you're a barber, construction, something that we can segue them into. Then we need to create a recruitment situation in New York, in LA, and everywhere, wherever we're sending them to. Create a recruitment situation and pipeline them into the system. Once we got that done, then we can let the next crew come in.
Right.
But we can't just keep bringing them in and piling them up and figure that the situation's going to fix itself.
Mm-hmm. So I want to just sidebar really quick. So the Central Park Five, I don't know if you heard about this, but the Central Park Five
of course
decided to sue former President Donald Trump over his slanderous that's what's on the paper, over his slanderous words at the debate. And so how do you both feel about that they now have said, we're going to sue we're going to sue Donald Trump because of what he said at the debate. And I'll tell you what he said. He said, listen, he said that basically at the time they said that they were guilty. And when he ran the ad, they said that they were guilty. So he was pointing his finger at kids that said they were guilty in killing someone. And then so they were exonerated, and they wanted from him. And I think that he should have eventually gave them some type of apology or some type of, conversation. But now they're suing him. How do you both feel about that?
I think that's just an abuse of the criminal justice system and our laws. I agree with you that being in kind, it would be nice in hindsight for maybe to say, hey, this is what we knew at the time, it's wrong. But even still, if I was them, I would be more upset at the Democratic prosecutors and the Democratic attorneys that were the ones that falsely accused me in the first place. I wouldn't be upset at a private citizen making comments because they have influence nearly as much as the situation that was created in the first place. And this being near the election is just clearly political posturing. I know one of them, I'm forgetful of the name, but he's in this now, Yusuf. He got pulled over for having tents, which are illegal. And then he came out and claimed that he was triggered and then wanted to point the finger back at the NYPD, even though he was wrong and he didn't get a ticket and the officer let him out. And unfortunately, right now, we just have a lot of political posturing by people of color because we know that in this election cycle and in the media, anytime that you're Black and you claim that you're a victim, rightfully so or not, is going to get attention. And this is what we don't need to be relitigating things from the 90s when they've lived their lives, they got their settlement. One of them is even in the city council. Now you want to go make this lawsuit to relitigate this idea that he's racist, to push that narrative forward. How about we focus on actual policies? Because the most racist thing is them using billions of tax dollars to fund and house and give free healthcare to migrants when they never gave any African American in this country free things. Racist things is like putting 10,000 migrant kids into the New York City public school system when we already have a historic teaching shortage and most Black kids in the city can't even read. Those are actual policies. So when they want to talk about racism, it worries less to me about how someone feels as opposed to actual policies that's been detrimental to Black people in this country.
Did you hear the congressman right there? Go ahead, Congressman Moore. We calling for you. We standing behind you, Congressman Moore. How do you feel about that, Mr. Ayala?
Listen, I really can't even say more than what you just said, Mr. Moore, man, and our future leader, because it's like you said, it's something of the past. It happened. We held the city liable for it. I was around when it happened, so I remember it like it was yesterday, clearly. Like you said, Trump was a free citizen at the time, and he was doing something based on what occurred. These kids were convicted at the time, just like nobody cared about them all the years that they were locked up. Now everybody's now reflecting back on it because it came back. They were released. They've been exonerated. Now one of them's in council. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man. If you can get Trump to say I'm sorry, that's cool. Stop going backward, move forward. Think about how we can keep this from happening again before other kids. That's where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? It happened. Forget about the past. Just like you move on in life, man. We got to move on in life, man. But now we gotta focus on what we do to make sure that this does not occur again.
Yeah, and he's a grown man now talking about like his feelings is hurt because if someone that was a private citizen won't apologize to you when you've been paid millions of dollars, you're now a city council member. It's just one of those things where it's like, I get it, it's wrong. You would have liked them in a perfect world to apologize. I understand. But stop in the election cycle. Stop race baiting. Stop. It's doing more damage to us than anything and driving us apart. Stop.
Yeah. And that's how I feel. I feel like, they're using them to, again, shame anybody else who considering voting for Trump. What he tried to give these kids the death penalty 30 years ago, and he tried not to rent to black people years ago. And, there's a lot of people there, I'm sure a lot of landlords in New York don't want to rent to black and brown folks, and it's happened across New York City, across the board. And sometimes you got to say, well, I understand that. We've got to clean up our act too. And I want to be stressed and be strong about that, because if we don't clean up our act, what are we talking about when Donald Trump is saying, oh, well, America's going to look like Detroit, right? And then you got Lizzo popping out and say, oh, well, I want all of America to look like Detroit. Hold on, Lizzo.
Hold on. Have you been to Detroit lately?
Yeah, I heard that. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want my city to look like Detroit. No disrespect to anybody I know in Detroit.
I was in Detroit in June for my job.
Okay.
I got to drive around there. And these are the delusional things that Democrats say because they're trying to race bait as opposed to actually speaking about reality. The reality in Detroit is that it looks like a third world country, parts of it, where most of the houses are burnt down, either abandoned, and there's absolutely little economic development happening in majority of the black areas. What we've seen in Detroit is an auto industry that used to be one of the best in the world that has been under rapid decline for various reasons for a few decades, to where we've lost our manufacturing jobs, which led to a huge decline in the black neighborhoods, which went from middle class thriving areas with good schools to now poverty stricken ones with crime. So when Democrats talk about that, we can actually talk about the facts of what's going on in the ground and how we've been voting for them in a solid block since basically the 70s. But in almost every metric you can find, we have either stagnated or declined. These are the real things. And this is why it just frustrates me when we continue to use the race bait and, oh, somebody's racist, they're this, they don't like us. Well, as black people, we have to like us first. We have to then look at the things internally. To your said about the renting situation. Well, yeah, there's certain people that I know that look like me that I would be quite hesitant to rent to because I know certain histories or certain patterns. And we can't say, hey, we want safer neighborhoods, but we don't want the police, because then ultimately who's keeping us safe? Who's taking those elements out? We can't say that, oh, it's racism, but yet we're 13% of the population, over 50% of homicides, overwhelmingly done by black people. These are things that we have to address internally, that I think a lot of time the Democratic Party do race baiting and constantly creating a straw man that this person's racist, white people don't like us, Donald Trump is racist, to where we're looking everything through the emotional lens of who makes us feel better, as opposed to what we're seeing on the ground and what we're actually feeling.
I love it. And I almost want to cry when I think about how we push ourselves. See, they're saying to the black community, what are you doing? You're okay with the struggle. Do you want to get out the struggle? Oh, you don't want cheaper gas. You're okay with struggling. You don't want the prices to go back down. You understand the struggle, and you know in America there's nothing but the struggle here for you, and you cannot vote for it. I consider Mr. Ayala in a place where we're going into another tax bracket. You cannot tax me 70% after I spent my life building the dynasty that I'm building, and then you want to put me in a tax bracket that say I'm gonna take 70% of your money and then give it out the way that I want to, and give it to Ukraine and Russia and everybody like that, and you have no say on that. And then I'm telling everybody else that doesn't have the amount of money you have, tax the rich, tax the rich. And so we have about 8 to 10 more minutes. And I want to ask you guys, how do you feel about Elon Musk, right, giving $1 million a day in Pennsylvania, right? So he's giving $1 million a day in Pennsylvania. Now, Whoopi Goldberg then lost her mind. Coach Walsh then lost his mind. How do you feel about him giving $1 million a day for people who signed a petition in Pennsylvania, basically pushing that swing state vote?
Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
First of all, then they also need to be losing their minds over the fact that Kamala Harris's campaign is paying people to speak to their family members and convince them to vote for them. They should also be losing their mind over the millions of dollars in dark money that we can't track down who donated that's going to her campaign that could be from international sponsors.
That's
they need
right.
to be losing their mind about a lot of things as opposed to pointing the finger. And if they're really upset about it, then they should be advocating for laws and campaign finance and how campaigns are really run, as opposed to now this is someone, a private citizen, doing this, and this is an illegal right. This is, again, one of those things where they want to point the finger because somebody on their side isn't doing it, or because it gives the Republican Party an advantage, when in their own way, Democrats have done the same thing. They should be losing their mind at the Labour Party in the UK coming and trying to knock on doors in America, which is clearly a violation of our campaign laws, where you have a foreign entity coming into the country to advocate for a political party. They should be upset about the millions of dollars that Hunter Biden received from countries abroad that could have possibly been influencing the president running in the election. There's a lot of things that there's just contradiction that they don't talk about. So again, this is just a propaganda on the left to where they want to point the finger and create an issue. But mind you, they're guilty of that in a lot of other ways in itself, in ways that's actually illegal. So for me, if they want to have that conversation, we can have that conversation, but I hope they're open to accountability on all sides.
Do you love him? I love him.
I love him, man. And I totally agree. I totally agree. It's about accountability, man. And I think there's more things that they need to be looking at. There's bigger issues than what Elon Musk is doing with his money. You understand? And at the end of the day, I don't really feel like it's going to affect the vote either way. To be honest with you, this is a separate issue that's going on. And like Mr. Moore said, they should be looking at Kamala Harris, man, how she came up with all this money, man, to finance her campaign, man, at the last minute when Biden couldn't even scrape 2 pennies together. To me, and you and I, Janelle, we've spoken about it. I felt like this was a setup from the beginning.
Yeah,
they were set up to do this. Then all of a sudden, he came up with, COVID. You know what I'm saying? And I can't run no more. After he was being mocked for the way he looked in the debates, the way he looked in his campaigns, the way he's falling downstairs, the way he's falling off bikes. But you're not built for this no more. So you went to a younger party where, guess what? She's not built for this. Physically, she is, but mentally and socially, she's not. She's not ready for what's about to happen. Should she wind up in office, which I'm hoping she won't be. And Trump said something very clear, and I've been saying this for the longest, man. The United States is a business. Trump is the ultimate businessman. Multi-billionaires run companies for many years, like them, love them, hate them. It don't matter. This is an organization. This is a company that we're running, and we have to run it efficiently. Unlike Biden, who's giving away trillions of dollars for wars that don't benefit us whatsoever, and we have nothing, no invested interest in these countries. You understand what I'm saying? They can't give us nothing in return. So this has been a problem to me. As I'm sitting here, and you're talking about you about to stop Social Security. This is what we live off. This is what my mother lives off. My mother's gonna be 82 years old. This is what she lives off. How you gonna stop what she's given hundreds of thousands of dollars to, probably millions of dollars. And my father, God bless, dead, who were independent business owners for 50 years in the United States of America. Now all of a sudden you're going to say we're not going to have access to our money. Why? Because you're giving it to these countries. You're giving it to all these migrants that are coming in, man, that can't do nothing, can't provide nothing, can't add no value, man. This is a real freaking problem to me, man. So stop centering on things that don't matter, have nothing to do with nothing, man. And then like I was telling you, Janae, earlier, that, you know, I hate the way she's taking these sound bites now. Little pieces of a conversation of a longer speech that Trump is giving. Yeah, you can manipulate our conversation right now. If you take sound bites and move pieces around and things like that, I can wind up saying anything and looking bad. At the end of the day, you're using this on your campaign trail to show what this man is doing. Don't you worry about what you're doing and what you plan on doing should you be in office, instead of worried about what this man's saying on the trail and what he's saying against you. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. What are we going to do to fix this economy? Bottom line. What are we going to do to fix the migration problem? Bottom line. What are we doing? Matter of fact, let's go to New York. What the freak are we going to do with this Eric Adams situation where everybody's running away from this man? You know what I'm saying? They're talking all this stuff, you know, like, come on, Kathy Hochul's not doing nothing. Oh, yeah, she's moderating the situation. You ain't doing nothing. These people are running on their own because they want to get away from the fire.
Well, okay, so we've got to close out. Dwayne, you could say your last piece, but we've got to close out.
Dwayne was feeling that one, though.
Yeah.
No, since Manny, I want you to have the last word on, you know, since the Latinos are choosing the president, I want you to have the last word. But Dwayne, go ahead and say, I got 30 seconds for you. Go ahead and say your piece.
I'm going to say 2 brief points. One, if they want to talk about saving Social Security, how is it that you're rushing 15 million people who have been paying into Social Security and become citizens that would then qualify for Social Security, which would bankrupt it at historic rates? Secondly, Democrats should also be really upset at the fact that nobody voted for Kamala. Again, this was the biggest coup in U.S. history, that they ran a candidate that we said was mentally ill or was aging, and then everyone voted, millions of people, and then last minute, because they thought he was going to lose, not because he said he couldn't run, they pulled the plug and installed somebody. That is stealing democracy in front of our eyes, and clearly the Democratic Party doesn't care about it.
I love him. Okay, Manny.
I love
presidency. Barack Obama.
Hey.
I think Barack Obama's running now, right? President Trump or Vice President Harris, who's going to win? The Latino chooses the vote. I'm
telling you, it's going to be Trump. Trump is for us. He's in the trenches with us, man. He's a businessman. He got my vote. I'm a businessman. I'm looking for growth. I'm looking for this country to grow. The country can't grow. I can't continue to grow as an independent businessman. You feel me? And neither can my family, neither can my fellow Latinos. So as Latinos, we need to let our voice be heard. And what I heard just now recently was the Latinos are the biggest voters coming out for early voting. And I appreciate that. I love that. My Latinos, go out and vote. Rock the vote. I am the vote, man. Let's do it. Let's get out there and vote for Trump.
Vote for Congressman Dwayne Moore.
Yes, I endorse that conversation.
New York State Assembly.
And what district is it again, Dwayne?
New York State Assembly, District 29. Assembly
District 29. We look forward to hearing more from you, young man, and we are behind you, the Hip Hop Union. We got your back. Thank you. This is the New American Perspective. This is Jania Butler, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
And that is our show today. Hope you loved it.